Let's see what else I got here. I also have Charlotte. She also works with Greater Richmond SCAN. Charlotte, you want to wave? Charlotte's going to be available. She's like in the background doing all of the technology stuff for us. So thank you in advance for that. And if you have a question about technology or anything that she can help troubleshoot, you can send a message to her directly or just put it in the main chat, which we'll actually go over in just a second where that is and how to use it. And she'll do her best to help you. Okay, so feel free to reach out for her for those questions. And then you all should have gotten an email this morning. Rachel sent out with an action step guide. So this is not like required to use, but it's hopefully a guide for you to use to outline our discussion and write down any notes or ideas when we're going through each of these sections. So if you have it, great. If you don't worry about it. We'll send out another copy when we send the recording in case you want to write down things afterward. I think that's it. Did I cover everything? Okay, great. So again, thank you so much for attending. I wanted to start with a feeling check-in with everyone. So just to get us a little bit more familiar with the chat feature, if you would hover your mouse down at the bottom of your screen, you'll see in the middle there's a chat box. And if you click it, thank you, Charlotte. Charlotte actually just put the link to the document in the chat already. If you would just type in the chat box, if you feel comfortable, just sharing with myself and everyone else on the call how you're feeling right now. It can be a word, couple words, just a quick feeling check-in. Meh, that's a good one, Ashley. Cool, good, okay. Yeah, not too shabby, great. Energized, yeah, good. And so as people are sharing, feel free to look and see what other people are sharing as well. Feel free to also ask any questions in the chat of the group. And after we share in our small groups, I'm going to ask you all to share from what you got in your small groups in this feature as well, just to save time, because it takes time, you know, to unmute and then call on people and all that. And we'll actually have all of that saved for ourselves so that we can answer any questions that we couldn't answer during this time. Okay, does that sound good to everyone? Give me a thumbs up. You guys are alive? Sweet. Okay. All right, I'm gonna pass it over to you, Rachel.
Awesome. Hey everyone, I'm just gonna start by sharing this PowerPoint with you all. Thank you, Margo, for introducing us and also shouting out Resilience Week. I hope you all have been able to participate in lots of activities this week, or if this is your first one, I welcome you to participating with us. And I hope today we can all offer you just some of the things that have been working well for Amanda, Margo, and I, and the people that we have been working with. But also we are hoping to learn from you both in the chat and in those small groups, just what has been working for you all during this time when we're building resilience at home. So today I'm going to talk about boundaries and how boundaries are a big part of building resilience at home. You know, my role at SCAN is a mental health clinician and also community programs assistant. I'm a clinician with our Circle Preschool program, so I get to work with the little ones at our therapeutic preschool, where we offer, you know, wraparound support for both kids who have gone through a lot of trauma experiences early on in their lives, but then also the caregivers that we're wanting to support through their own, you know, parenting and the challenges of, you know, having to parent kids with, you know, some challenging behaviors and trauma experiences as well. And then I'm also a mental health clinician at our Child Advocacy Center, where I see a range of kids, ages, preschool age, all the way up to older, you know, high school age kids, to also support them through coping with, processing, exploring their lives and their experiences as well. So from that perspective is what I'm offering to you today. I'm also working from home during this time. I'm in my bedroom is my work from home experience. So as a lot of you may all have been experiencing through COVID-19 and working from home, it can be hard when you're trying to create both psychological and physical boundaries, you know, during this time. So I wanted to kind of, on that point, explore with you all, how are you feeling and how are you doing in that area of boundaries during this time? So Charlotte's actually going to shout out a poll that you can all just have a minute just to select your answer of how are you feeling you are doing in the area of boundaries. All right, take a moment more to select that, and then Charlotte's actually going to share out how folks are feeling they're doing in this area. Okay, thank you all for taking that time to respond. So it looks like some folks are feeling mostly in the fair and good categories. Some of you are doing very good. So I hope that you'll share some strategies that you're doing in the chat that are helping you feel really good in this area. And for those who feel like they're doing poor, I think it's one of these days where, I feel like I'm doing poor in the area today, right? Tomorrow I may feel like I'm doing really good. So it's also being gentle with ourselves during this time of how we're practicing this boundary work and what are some tools we can take away from each other and from maybe this training for you all of how to improve in this area and feel a little bit better about it. Thanks for sharing, Charlotte. So on that note, I wanted to start off this conversation with sharing that, setting boundaries is always self-care, that whether or not we're in COVID, working from home, schools are closed, and even beyond this experience that we're all having together right now, setting boundaries is a really important part of self-care and how we keep ourselves physically, mentally, socially well. This is not just for yourself, right? But for those of you who are parents who are juggling multiple hats, and Amanda will speak to that more later from her personal experience as a parent. But, this challenge of doing all these hats of, worker, parent, homeschool teacher, 24/7 caregiving, we're all balancing a lot of things right now. And I think setting boundaries in a way that fills up your cup, as this image shows, throughout the day, so that you can fill either your clients' cups up, your family's cups up, or your own cup up. It produces this really positive cyclical process, right, of us filling ourselves up so that we don't feel drained. And I think when we find that we're not giving ourselves these boundaries, these safe, kind but firm limits, our cups over time begin to become more and more empty. And then it's hard to then refill, back into that cup later on. And we go into this kind of mode of we are feeling a bit more stressed or a bit more on edge or, a bit more angry, right? And that is because oftentimes, fairly enough, we are holding a lot in our cups these days. And we need the importance of boundaries, breaks, and balance to really fill into that and give us that good self-care, not just during COVID, but beyond as well. So I wanted to offer you all just some tips and strategies and takeaways, and we'll share this PowerPoint with you all in a follow-up email. I put links in here just so that you guys can be able to look more into these resources if and when you have time later on. But it's really important during this time. I've learned, especially in my own, apartment and lifestyle, to designate certain spaces and times for eating, sleeping, working, playing, all of these different activities that we're doing. It can be easy, I think, for me to wake up in the morning and be in my comfy bed and just pull my computer into bed, right, and start answering emails. But then we're kind of, again, right, merging these realms of life of work and sleep and play and all of these areas that really make it hard for our brains later to separate all of these different experiences we're having throughout the day. For those of you who may be in maybe one bedroom apartments or studios, or where you are having to do a lot of work in the same space as you're eating and sleeping and hanging out space, thinking of how you can say, okay, this one area of this room is just going to be for work only, or for play only, or for sleep only, and setting that kind of limit or boundary for yourself so that you can mentally separate from those different activities through this time of being at home so much. I think also, creating structure and routine in your day when possible, really has shown, studies have shown, not just during COVID and beyond, but the importance of setting a structure and routine, because that repeatability in that routine that's going to happen every day really helps us calm down, be more present, and be able to, again, fill our cup, right, with that boundary. At the same time, we want to offer a lot of self-forgiveness and self-compassion that's sticking to a strict routine right now, whether you're with kids or without. It's really hard when we're under stress to say, I'm going to do every morning, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to take a walk, every morning I'm going to start my kids off with a meditation. That can be really hard sometimes to feel like you can do, but also giving yourself that grace of, hey, I'm trying my best. And I know it's important to have some sort of structure and routine to keep us kind of calm and give ourselves that boundary. Another one is that I read an interesting article about how we're used to maybe a commute to work as a way to separate, our time both at home, but then at work, we're naturally kind of, driving, walking, taking transportation in some way to a workspace. Oftentimes that's now not the case for a lot of folks. And it suggested, like, how can you kind of build in a commute as a way to create a physical boundary between work and home life. And this may be, taking a short walk in your neighborhood before the start of your work day, so that can be your commute to work, right? Ending your day with that as well, so that you can kind of commute out of the workspace back to home and resetting yourself in that way. For those of you who may not have access to that outside time, could you go into your kitchen and make yourself a cup of coffee or some tea and say, okay, this is my little break. Like, I'm not going to bring my work phone. I'm not going to bring my computer. I'm just going to pretend like I'm going to a coffee shop and taking this little break that I would maybe typically during my work day. So we have to get really creative during this time in this process, but just reminding ourselves the importance of that break and of how can we physically separate all of these different pieces that we're playing. And then again, Amanda's gonna talk more about, her form of structure as a family, with kids of, many ages and how that's been working for her. So I'll leave that for later, but, I do suggest checking out these links just to see, how are we trying to create these boundaries. And then last, how are we then discussing and voicing that need for support with these limits, rules, these routines, to your roommate, to your family, to yourself. I offer some examples of, for parents who are trying to get some space, having a little door sign like this one in the bottom right of, a visual representation depending on your kid's age of come on in, or I'm working or I'm on a call, like just text me, so that you're again communicating like, this is my boundary, like I want to be available for you, but first, I need to do this part of my job, right? Kids, especially younger kids that I work with, do very well with like visual representation, right? So making like, helping as an art project, making like a little, mommy or daddy's or grown-ups door sign with them, of like, a high five maybe for a wave to come in, a phone to say, call me, right? Maybe another one to say like, knock real hard if it's an emergency. So just ways that you're meeting kind of the kids where they are in their age to offer this kind of, again, boundary, but a way for them to communicate with you at the same time. Another one is this in the top right, like a compliment sheet. So getting one of those papers that has little things that you can rip off of it, the perforated pages, so that you can rip off a compliment if you're really needing me to notice how cool your art project is, but I'm on a call, rip off a compliment and I'll come tell you that compliment myself when I'm done with my project or with my work project. So again, like offering almost in the therapy world what we call like a transitional object, or a way, a physical sort of item, concrete item for kids to have when you're not available to them in person in that moment. So you're able to kind of practice some of these boundaries while also recognizing that kids don't always, they don't know what work stress is, right? Or they don't know like that them interrupting you during a Zoom meeting is embarrassing to you. So you're trying to meet them halfway in that sense as well. And all of these tools can work for roommates, extended family members, you know, just how are we communicating to folks that we need some of these boundaries. So one way that I enjoy at times starting and ending my day is, you know, doing this activity that it's taken from Laura Vandernoot Lipsky's book, Trauma Stewardship. So she talks a lot about the impact of trauma on helping professionals, and how it, you know, self-care and self-compassion is so important in building ourselves up and our cups up when we are hearing a lot of trauma stories or really in a helping field. But I think this works as well as just a way to start and end, you know, our workday. So this will go out for you all to kind of see all of these sort of prompts that she suggests, but I'm going to invite you right now that we can actually do, because it's Tranquil Thursday, and I think gratitude is an important part of tranquility, is invite you to respond to this question of, you know, thinking of someone or something that you are grateful for, and practice now with writing down that one thing. So that's this west side of gratitude, of finding balance. And this is a nice way of giving that boundary. So if you all want to write in the chat or just on your own, I'll just invite you for a minute just to say one thing that you're grateful for, and practice writing that down. So I see health, my dogs. Sunshine sounds so nice, being able to walk. Family, good health, kids. Grandbaby, church, humor. Yeah, these are wonderful responses. So, and keep on responding as well. And I hope folks can get like a nice smile that I'm getting just from reading some of these, you know, and I think that's the beautiful part of this, is that this really invites you, I think, to start and end your day with just this feeling of being refilled and renewed, but also like bringing a smile to your face of, wow, like even during this hard time, we do have things that we're grateful for, right? Or I really enjoy this question for myself of, if I weren't doing this work, activity, et cetera, what would I love to do? And even on the hardest days as a therapist, sometimes when I feel like, whew, I do not know if I can do this again, if I end my day with the question of, you know, if I weren't doing this work, what would I do? And I can't think of anything better that I would want to do. So that really typically, and it would be okay if I said, yeah, I can't do this anymore, but what would I love to do? And allowing ourselves to have that hope or creativity or just thoughtfulness around exploring like what does make us happy and fulfilled during this time and beyond. So thank you all for sharing in the chat. So briefly, I know I want to give time for everyone to chat, so I'll just go over these as well, and then we'll kind of break up into the breakout rooms to encourage some chat time. But when we can't always create those physical boundaries that I was talking about before, it can be really, really important of thinking about how can we adapt and also emphasize the importance of the psychological and emotional boundary piece, especially during this time. I really believe in and enjoy emergency self-care plans, you know, where you're actually kind of, and I linked to one here that I encourage you all to do on your own time if you'd like, to plan to who to go to and when to seek support from folks. It also asks, this plan that I linked to asks a lot of questions of, you know, what helps me calm down? If I have a few minutes, only 3 minutes, what's an activity I can do to help me take that breath and reset? But an especially important piece that I wanted to emphasize, that it asks, you know, if you're having a hard day or you're stressed out about a certain topic, who is best to go to in your life right now for that support? You know, I have a good friend, but he is always talking about COVID-19. And that's just always what he kind of is on his mind. He's read every article, he knows every sort of update of statistics. And when I'm having a hard day at the end of the day and I just want to talk about like movies or my interests, you know, it's part of my emergency self-care plan to go like, okay, I'm not going to talk to him about this right now. Like he's not going to be the one that I reach out in this moment. even though I may normally go to him for support and advice, I'm going to say, no, not today. Like I'm not in that place. And I can reference that plan or just that thought in my head of, you know, who do I want to go to right now so that my needs are met as well during this time. And I think especially around COVID stuff, you know, some folks don't want to hear it as much, some folks do. And so it's being mindful of, you know, when we're sharing that information, who do we share it with? How do we share it? Which leads me to this idea from Tend Academy of low impact debriefing, which is often a technique used for helping professionals around, you know, if you've had a really traumatic case, you know, with a lot of details, how are you sharing that with your colleagues when you're kind of really needing someone to process that information with? And it encourages, you know, having the self-awareness of, hey, I'm really worked up about this case. If I need to talk to someone about it, I need to give them fair warning. So asking, hey, like, I have a really hard case that I want to talk to you about. Are you in a place where you can hear it? Then waiting for their consent. So if they say, yes, I am in a place, or no, and then respecting that, and then offering limited disclosure that I'm not going to give them then every single dirty detail of the situation. One, for confidentiality in our realm of, you know, the therapy world, but also because that person doesn't need to have that same traumatic experience that I just had, right, of hearing that case. And for me, I think this really well, it applies well to the COVID-19 kind of, and Margo's going to speak to this about how to take breaks from the news around, you know, what's happening in our world right now. But I think it's a boundary to be able to say, like, I'm going to respect your boundary by saying, hey, I just read this, you know, kind of really distressing article about COVID. Are you in a place to hear it right now? You know, because sometimes I'll just get links throughout the day or like a note throughout the day saying, hey, like, check this article out about this new horrible thing, you know, and it can sometimes be like, I want to be supportive of that person who may be having a hard time coping with what's happening right now, of course, but also I want to be in a safe and emotionally able place to take that myself for my own health and then support them as well. So it's really kind of having that boundary with yourself about how much is helpful for me right now. And on the flip side, you know, how much can I help this person if I'm not filled up and in a good place to hear it? And I think that really relates well to me with COVID news. A few other last things is just, you know, intentionally changing your hats. And Margo actually, you know, shared this idea with me, which I think is great of, you know, as you're kind of plopping through a lot of roles of teacher, parent, you know, community member, supporter for your friend, you know, and then you're just yourself and your hangout time. How are we almost like psychologically putting on different hats and taking them off throughout that day? You know, some of my friends may not want me to say at the end of the day, how are you feeling about that? Right. And that like kind of therapist voice. And they're like, all right, like, I'm not here for therapist, Rachel. Right. And so I have to kind of take off that hat and be like, yeah, like that sucks, you know, and like just model like who I am as a person, right, individually, separate of my profession. And, you know, parents, I imagine, have to flip through this as well of like, I'm teacher, parent, and I'm fun parent, right? And like, let's do some fun things. Or, you know, I'm like serious right now and like how I'm talking to like in my profession of supporting someone. Now I can kind of take a break from that hat and just be mindful of what roles we're kind of flipping through psychologically right now that may not have the natural physical barriers of traveling somewhere to do that or changing that during, you know, changing spaces during that time. And there are lots of other ideas, and I saw a few people shared them in the chat, so I really appreciate that. You know, changing your clothes after work, you know, brain breaks, which Margo's going to speak to next, you know, going outside and doing outdoor activities and resetting your body through breaks. You know, all of these things will be a great segue for Margo next of, you know, what are some other strategies that you can do to kind of build on these boundaries and reset your body as well. All right, so we're now gonna flip into breakout rooms in a moment. For those of you who are not familiar, what will happen is Charlotte will just send a little ping to your computer and invite you to join a breakout room, which is really just like a small group with a few of the people that are on this call. I invite you, if you all have access to it, is the My Action Steps guide that we made for you just to kind of jot some notes down, or really hoping that you can make some intentions or some goals around what do I want to carry forth out of this training and bring it from, into my home after this. And so please, use that to however you feel is best for you. And I'll ask that you, for this time, just to focus on the question, what guidelines, rules, or limits may help you build boundaries at home during this time and beyond. And anyone who's not comfortable going into a breakout room, you're welcome just to stay in this main area with us we'll be hanging out here, and we'll probably bring you all back in about like 4 or 5 minutes. All right, I see almost everyone's coming back in. So for those who haven't heard, if anyone wants to share any reflections or thoughts that came out of their small group, feel free to put that in the chat, and I can just read a few out, and then Margo will start breaks. Keep and do routines, definitely. The gratitude ideas. And if anyone had maybe a new rule or just a new limit that they wanted to have, limit news and social media, exposure to the news, setting boundaries and breaks. Yeah, someone said that someone in their group shared setting up lunch chats with colleagues to see them and make sure you take a break. So not having maybe the only times that you talk to colleagues is on like a Zoom formal meeting. Visual on the door, headphones may be helpful for my family unit. It's a great idea about a boundary. Yeah, these are wonderful comments, y'all. So thank you for sharing. All right, Margo, I will segue to you, and feel free to keep responding, y'all. Thank you for participating in that breakout room.
All right, so breaks. I'm going to cover the types of breaks, movement, brain breaks, and breaks from, so like news, things like that. But before we do, just another poll. How do you feel like you're doing in the area of breaks? So how do you feel like you're doing in taking breaks throughout the day? And I don't know about you guys, but it changes every day for me. It's like weather dependent, it's workload dependent, it's mental health dependent. So maybe even like this week or today, how are you doing in that area? And then Charlotte, whenever you think most people have shared, you can share their results. Oh, even. Okay, so mostly looks like fair and good again, and even close with poor, very good and excellent on the lower side. Cool, well, hopefully this will help with that. So again, I'm gonna go over 3 different types of breaks. These are of course not the only types of breaks you can take. These are the ones I'm taking and that people have shared with me that they are taking. So this is why I chose these. So we'll start with movement breaks. Oh, and that little picture there is just talking about how we're actually more productive when we take more breaks, even though that may feel counterintuitive, right? Well, I'll just get all this done. I'll sit here for 3 hours and do everything, right? Just to feel, I actually had that feeling yesterday. I had to like do something. It was going to take me a couple hours, but that I'll actually be more productive if I even take just a 2-minute break every 10, 15 minutes and come back. It'll probably take me less time overall to complete that task, and it did. Okay, next slide, please. So movement breaks, these are, of course, again, not the only ones you can take. I'm gonna cover these because, again, these are ones that I use, and they're actually helpful just given the fact that we're sitting all day. So I'm actually gonna show us some stretches that we can do that counteract some of the posture that we sit in most of the day. And I'm gonna actually demo them now for you. But before I do that, I'll just invite you again, if you would like to stretch with me, all you'll have to do is just be in a seat. And if you'd like to stand up, that's great too. And then if you don't feel comfortable having your camera on for this portion, you can of course take it off. So for stretching, if we're sitting at a computer most of the time, right? I'm gonna actually move my chair back a little bit. we're probably hunched over like this most of the day, yeah? Especially driving, typing, shoulders are caved in, chest may even be caved, and chin to chest kind of alignment, right? So we're just gonna basically try to undo some of that. So if you wanna start with interlacing your palms, interlace your fingers and press your palms forward. We're just gonna stretch the back, and then inhale, reach the arms up, and hopefully you'll find a taller spine this way. So crown of the head reaches up, and then from the base of your spine all the way up to the crown of the head, there's more length. We're typically not stretching into the side body as well, just really throughout our whole day, COVID or not, right? So we're gonna stretch through the side body here in our seat. So we're gonna bend to the right, stretch out the side body. Arms can stay lifted, or you can release your arms down. And then inhale, reach back up, and we're gonna take it to the other side. Sit bones are still down, and you'll feel the stretch on the intercostal muscles on the side body. Inhale, come back up. Exhale, release your hands down. Another stretch is nice for the neck. If you want to tilt your head one way, hand on the head is nice if you're not feeling the stretch in the side neck. Sometimes if we just take our ear to our shoulder, that's enough stretch. So that's up to you. Couple breaths in each posture. Yeah, good, and then switch sides when you're ready. Come back to center. You're going to interlace your fingers again one more time. Press the palms forward, reach the arms up. And this time we're going to make a little cradle for the back of our head, elbows wide, and just lean back like you're leaning into a chair or a lounge chair of some kind. And this is going to bring the stretch across the chest and the shoulders. If it's okay with the head, you can look up to the ceiling and get the stretch through the neck as well. Keep squeezing your shoulder blades together to deepen the stretch. When you're ready, come back to center. And then the last stretch I'll show you is for our hips. So if we're seated in a closed hip position most of the day, we're often tight on the outside of our hips, which can actually lead to some lower back pain as well. So I'm going to back up one more time so you can see me. I'm just going to take your right leg up and over your left thigh to a figure four, just like this. And if your ankle comes off your thigh, great. If it doesn't, that doesn't really matter, right? So you can stay with your ankle where it is, or for a deeper stretch, move the ankle closer to your hips. And just let the weight of gravity bring your knee down closer to the earth. And if you want to assist that stretch, place the right hand below the knee. So don't press the knee joint down, but below the knee on the meaty part of our leg. And you can just kind of give a little rotation down towards the earth. And let's switch sides. Other leg up and over, figure four shape. Getting this outside of the hip area. Using the assistance of the hand. And you probably notice that their hips are probably a little bit different. There's typically an imbalance there in the body, and this is to help create more balance. All right. Let me come back closer to you. You can have another comfortable seat. Hopefully that was helpful. There's all sorts of things you can do. Chair yoga, been offering some things like that because it's super accessible, but any of that you can do standing as well. Cardio movement. So cardio movement, really great to have the heart rate get elevated and then come back down, right? Really good for our health, actually, if we're even talking about just increasing the ability for our immune system to be working right now. And if we're sitting all day, I mean, typically I'm walking around a lot during the day, right? Most of my work is with Richmond Public Schools and other organizations. So I'm either driving, getting out of my car, walking to a classroom, going to another one, doing that. There's a lot more walking throughout my day that I'm no longer doing. Now it's just like to the bathroom or the kitchen, right? So I may not even have noticed that my heart rate was increasing and going down throughout my day, or even like the steps that I was naturally getting in. So finding time to do some of that movement. It can just be walking, running, if that's in your practice. We put up this ABC movement game handout up here. We can certainly send it. Again, this was from a training that Rachel and I did for self-care for families. I'm part of a group that works out together, and someone shared this ABCs for adults. So it was a lot more intense. These letters represented like 30 burpees and like crazy stuff like that. But we adapted it for kids so that you can do these with your family. You can just pick a word, spell the word, and do the activities that correlate. So some of those you'll see are cardio movements, jumping, running in place, jumping jacks, squats, things like that. Shaking it up. So this is a great way that I use with my younger clients, especially to get them moving a little bit or transitioning. So literally just shaking our bodies. So y'all can give it a little try. It's okay if you don't want to be seen or you feel like you look funny. We all do right now, right? And just notice how that literally releases some endorphins in the body and helps soothe the mind. All right, and then jumping. This is a great way to reset the brain. This is another way that, again, teach kids all the time if they're stuck in a particular emotion, doing 5 jumping jacks or jumping up and down, using trampolines. So these are things that we've been doing for a long time that help to reset the brain. Even just 5 to 10 seconds of this can be helpful. All right, next slide, brain breaks. So I'm gonna offer another several brain breaks, but of course these are not exhaustive list. Balancing the right and left side of the brain has been really helpful for me. So typically we're engaged in the left side of our brain most of our day when we're working and doing things that ask us to, use higher level thinking, speak, write, things like that. And so what happens is then we're kind of stuck in that side of the brain. And in order to kind of take a break from that part, we may want to engage the right side of our brain. So things you can do right side, coloring, imagery, looking at pictures. This is the creative part of the brain. And crossing the midline is another way to create balance. So you see that picture on the bottom of a child reaching one hand over to the opposite foot. All I mean when I'm talking about crossing the midline is the midline of your body, taking one part of the body and crossing it over to the other. So one thing you could do in your seat is giving yourself like a hug, right? And a yoga posture called eagle posture, where you're taking your hands, right arm under the left and clasping the hands here. Or you can do just like what that child's doing, bend down, reach for the toes. I love to take a forward fold whenever I can to also reset as a stretch or movement break, because anytime the head is below the heart, then it's actually sending signals to the central nervous system to calm. So a reset, things like that, head below the heart. You can even do it sitting in your chair, bending over your thighs. And then another right and left side is alternate nostril breathing, which I'm gonna show you all. And we won't do it for very long, but I do want to demonstrate it for you all. So if you want to participate, great, but you don't have to. Alternate nostril breathing is another way to balance both sides of the brain. It is also really helpful in clearing out the nasal passages. So if you need a tissue after this, that's great, especially around allergy season. And you can also stop at any point if it doesn't feel good. But if you'd like to join, take out a hand, and you'll bring your 3 fingers in so your pinky and thumb will be extended out. And I'm going to guide us through plugging one nostril and then the other. So first take a deep breath in through both nostrils and open your mouth. Inhale through both nostrils. Seal your lips, exhale through both nostrils. Inhale through both nostrils. Plug the right, exhale through the left. Inhale through the left. Plug the left, exhale through the right. Inhale right. Switch, exhale left. Inhale left. Switch, exhale right. Inhale right. Switch, exhale left. Release your palm, inhale through both. Exhale through both. One more deep breath in through the nose. And open the mouth side out. So again, you can do that. I do it as short as 30 seconds or up to several minutes. Helps to balance the brain and calm the mind. A couple other things I wanted to mention for brain breaks. Grounding into the present can be really helpful if you don't have a lot of time. All these things can be done, 10 seconds, right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I've heard a lot of people talking about this lately, so you may have heard of this before. It's really engaging all 5 of the senses. So the way that I've done it and prompted it anyways is look around and name to yourself 5 things that you see. Name 4 things that you feel, so things that are touching you or that you're touching. 3 things that you hear. 2 things that you smell. And 1 thing that you taste. This can be pared down depending on time or even age appropriateness to just like 3 or 2. Or even sometimes with young children when they start to get a little bit dysregulated, to shift the mind, I'll just say, hey, can you name 5 things in this room that are red? What do you smell right now? Oh, what do your clothes feel like on your body, right? So you could just use 1 at a time just to ground into the present. Using mindful eating and mindful walking, whether you're doing that by yourself or together with whoever you're with, friends or family. So just actually noticing what you're eating and how it tastes and the different ingredients in your food. If you're walking, to notice the sounds on your walk, the feeling of your feet in your shoes, right? So just taking time to ground to the present. Externalize it. So for myself, when I am stuck in a thought or something keeps replaying in my mind, like it's taking away so much of my energy because it's still like, it's like the tape replaying itself, right? Storyline, the script, whatever just happened. And so something that's been really helpful for me is to literally, I'll just take out my phone, or if I have paper near me, just pull up the note section of my phone and write it down. I don't have to ever show it to anyone. I can erase it right away, but literally externalizing it from up here to something else. Same thing with talking it out, right? If you're not a writer or a journaler, call someone you trust, or talk. I'm a big self-talker. I talk to myself all the time, right? Talk things out to yourself. This is just another way to externalize. And then what I wanted to end here with brain breaks, and this can really be for, it fits so well with balance and boundaries too, is Eliana Gill, who's a play therapist up in Alexandria, or she lives in Florida now, but she taught me this technique, wipe it off. So again, you may have heard this before or seen me talk about it, but literally to transition, or, ooh, that didn't really feel good, or that thing I just did, okay, it's done. I need to just, okay, get ready for the next thing. Whatever it is, you're tapping yourself, wiping it off, getting a fresh start. Feel free again in the chat to offer anything else. And then the last thing I wanted to go over was taking a break from, fill in the blank, right? So taking a break from social media. Social media has been amazing for connecting with people, keeping people in conversation, building or creating community. And I've noticed for myself and others, it can contribute to some of these things as well, like comparison, judgment, self-doubt, right? So we just want to notice when those things are happening. And yeah, maybe I need like a couple hours, an afternoon, a day, whatever it is, away from the social media. News, starting or ending the day with the news, and not, I've had to silence some of the notifications that I'm getting from certain I have like all the news things. And of course, like before COVID, it was appropriate. It was once a day. And now it's like 10 times a day from each source, right? So having to just say, okay, I don't need notifications only from this one source. Am I going to rely on getting my news from each day? And then screens. So many of you have actually elected to take yourself off camera. I'm proud of you for doing it. I had not done this myself until this past weekend when I was participating in it was a yoga retreat that a friend was running, and it was, you know, weekend, my personal time. And I felt like like I had to be on camera because I've been having to be on camera for work, but I didn't have to, right? So I took myself off camera, and I tell you, it was very nice to not have to be on camera and yeah, be like concerned with what my environment looks like to other people and all that stuff. So take a break from screens, using video. And then if you can make something a phone call, I've had people say, you know, like, let's talk about this thing. Do you want to do Zoom or phone call? And so I've made it a schedule for myself to every day when I go for my walk, I'm scheduling my one-to-one conversations during my walk, and I'm just having a phone conversation. It doesn't need to be like, we don't need to see each other's faces, or you can do a three-way call or something like that, just to limit the amount of screen that we're in front of. And then the last thing I'll say before we take our little breakout groups and share more ideas is take a break from work if you need it. This is something that I have not been good at, so I'm also preaching this to myself. It's easy for us to, yeah, if you're not feeling well, oh, well, I'm working from home anyway. I was doing that last week. I got on a training and I had a migraine, and I was on the training, but like I wouldn't have been at work if that was the case normally. So why am I on this training, right? So take a sick day when you need it, and if you have paid time off for personal days or vacation, take it. Just because you're not going anywhere or doing like what you would normally be doing, you still need to build in those days for rest, for mental health, for relaxation, even if it's just a, you know, home retreat, right? So yeah, this is my nudge to myself and to you to take sick and personal days when you can. All right, with that, I think we'll, yeah, go into our breakout rooms. And your question is, what other types of breaks are you taking? I'm sure there's a lot of great ideas that you can share. And then it's really easy for myself and all of us to just like say, that's a great idea, I'll try that one day. And then we don't do it, right? So I'm gonna ask you to like speak with your group in a language of like, this is what I'm committing to do, as if it's like a declarative statement. This is what I'm gonna do today or tomorrow. I'm gonna take a walk. I'm gonna try and do a stretch to cross through my midline. I'm gonna fill in the blank, okay? So, and if your group's like not doing that, like call them out for it. Keep each other accountable. Like, so what is everyone gonna do? You guys get 60 seconds less before you come back to the larger group. Yeah, help each other, hold each other accountable to what are you going to do to take a break today or tomorrow. All right, Charlotte, go ahead, and I'll see you guys in a couple to join back. So as you're joining back, we're gonna move right to Amanda, but we still wanna hear your shares of what you heard or said in your small group. So if you would contribute those to the chat, that would be great. And then you all can read them as you wish. And let's make sure everyone's back. All right, and then, yeah, and then so we'll just send it on to you, Amanda.
Make sure I'm unmuted. So hello, everyone. Just doing a quick poll of how you all feel like you are doing in the area of balance. And so here are our options from poor to excellent. So if you could just take a quick second to answer the poll question. And that is my disruptive dog that you all may hear in the background. And so it looks like that we have a couple of people who feel like they're doing an excellent job, and then a few more poor, but the majority of us look like we're somewhere between fair and good. I know that for me, that fluctuates with the day, and with what may be going on with my schedule and also with the schedule of my kids. So yesterday was a great day. Today is a little challenging, and that's okay. I've just gotten to the point of just saying it's okay. And so I am going to I'm Amanda, the trauma-informed specialist for the Boys and Girls Club, clubs of Metro Richmond. And so I'll be bringing a parent perspective. So I won't be focusing so much and talking about the work that I do at the Boys and Girls Club and with SCAN, but more and mainly focusing on what's going on in my household. And so this little picture that you see, these are my 4 children. I think they represent our poll pretty well. My youngest daughter, Rosebud, who many of you just saw me rock to sleep, was not a fan of our portrait. And so that's her at the bottom. She's 3. And I have a 13-year-old Ava. My daughter Hazy turned 6 yesterday. And then my 21-year-old son is home from college due to COVID-19. And so we are trying to find just some balance in all areas in terms of doing schoolwork, me still working, trying to make sure everyone is mentally and physically healthy. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about some things that we've been doing at home. And Rachel, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. And so when we initially started out, my daughter Ava has asthma, and so I had already predicted that we would be home before Governor Northam closed schools. And so my kids haven't been to school since March the 12th. We weren't there that Thursday and Friday before he closed schools. And so I had established like this awesome itemized every 30 minutes. We were doing different activities schedule. I had a menu for the first 30 days so that I would know what I needed from the grocery store. It was posted. We were doing affirmation statements in the morning. And here we are 8 weeks later, and our schedule looks very different than what it did when we first started. The name of the game is flexibility and grace. And so, there are things that are predictable for my kids. They know that, when they wake up, they have to have breakfast by 10. We're going to take a walk. We're going to play games. Like there's certain things that are predictable in our day. But a lot of times our day may not look the same one day to the next. I have worked to create a work zone, even though my work zone is in my bedroom, because I wanted my workspace to sort of allow my family to utilize the other areas in the house so that they weren't confined to one space. So I sort of created a space for myself in here. And we also have like a play zone, I have one for myself where I have like mandala coloring books, a journal, a book of poetry that I'm reading, some comfy slippers. My kids have those same things in their bedroom and also downstairs. So just having some areas that are assigned. My kitchen table is their work area. My 13-year-old daughter, her schedule looks a little different. So she's on her computer for most of the day because her school has opted to do virtual school. So just by nature of that, she's there. And so just having some spaces that we have some assigned things for them seems to work really well. Also making sure that I'm making time for myself, but also time with and for my kids during this time has been really important. My schedule is normally like I work from 11 to 7 or 10 to 6, 12 to 8, depending on what Boys and Girls Club I'm at. My kids are extremely involved in dance, so we're never home before 9 or 10 o'clock. So one thing that we have decided to do during this pause is have dinner together every day. And we normally make bread together, or the kids will make dessert. And so just allowing that to be a time where we do some things as a family. Also just making sure that I prioritize my own self-care and self-compassion. It would be very easy. You all probably saw me rocking my 3-year-old it's nap time. Normally I would have been like jumping at the door. Oh my God, you're interrupting me. It's a sign that Rachel told me to put on the door and it's going to work and it's not. And I would be like all panicked about that. And so as the weeks have gone by, I've just asked for grace. I have 4 kids at home and they don't understand because they don't know about coronavirus really. So they just come in and out. So, I sort of have an open door policy with them. And so just giving myself grace there. And also just making sure that we're staying connected to others. My 13-year-old and 21-year-old are really good about being on TikTok and being on Instagram and connecting with their friends, through social media. But my parents may not be as comfortable with those things. And so we have started to do Friday night Zoom dinners as a family. So my brother in California, my sister in Georgia, my niece who's a doctor in New Orleans, we all jump on from 8 to 9 on Fridays to make sure that all of our family is connected. My kids went from seeing my parents every single day to not seeing them at all. And so just making sure that we have healthy relationships and social connections still in place, even though we're doing like a self-isolation. And then Margo and Rachel both alluded to setting limits on technology. My kids spend a lot of time outside, and so they don't really have a lot of tablet or TV time. And so just continuing to do that, even though we're home for most of the day. At nighttime, I've started a new routine where I'll turn YouTube on their TV, but they're listening to meditations. So they think that, oh, the TV's on, but it's really just like marshmallow moon meditation every night. And so allowing a little bit of room for technology, but also setting some limits there. Again, just setting clear and realistic expectations. I know that I control the weather in my household. So on days where my anxiety is through the roof because I'm trying to, do a Zoom call, I'm trying to answer a parent that's calling, I'm trying to be on Zoom with my daughter for kindergarten, I know that I may not be at my best if I'm not in a healthy headspace. And so I know that in order for my children to be regulated, mom has to also be regulated. And so that little graphic just gives some little tips about how to co-regulate with your kids. I do this with adults too. If someone meets me with fire, I tend to try to meet them with water. And so instead of jumping into that with them, I talked about making meals and breaks and just establishing a schedule for chores. So I ordered a jar off of Amazon that has chore sticks in it. And it's probably something that ordinarily I could have made out of popsicle sticks, but, not going to the store. So even my son, who's 21, has to pull out a popsicle stick in the afternoon at 3 o'clock. And some of the chore sticks say silly things like pretend to be your favorite animal. And so for that day, you've gotten out of a chore. And so, just being realistic and providing those kinds of opportunities as well. We also spend a lot of time outside. I've noticed that in my neighborhood, there aren't too many families out walking, but we're out there every day, whether it's in the backyard, whether it's taking a walk, looking for birds, talking about what we're hearing and seeing, just getting the opportunity to be in the sunshine or whatever weather, because my girls also like to go outside in the rain, and just taking the time to breathe in a new space that's not just our bedrooms, seems to be something that helps us to find some balance here as well. And then, of course, providing consistency and structure, remembering that relationships matter. And so almost overnight, many of our relationships were disrupted. So even my daughter's kindergarten teacher, she rode her bike over on Monday to bring my daughter a birthday gift. And she was appropriately social distanced away from us while we were on the porch. But she recognizes that those relationships are important. I know for many of you all who work in the school system or like the Boys and Girls Clubs or after school programs have been in the neighborhood, physically taking things to families and making phone calls, because the families that we service also need some of the support and need the reminders that our relationships and connections still exist. I've been pretty good about scheduling breaks and times for rest. Normally, I don't have time to take a nap, or I don't make time to take a nap. I typically leave home like prior to COVID-19 at 7 o'clock in the morning to start morning carpool, and then I don't get back home until 9 p.m. And so I've really enjoyed this pause and the opportunity to take breaks, you know, and being able to just rest and recognizing that I have to invest in myself. And so if I'm tired, to just take a nap. And sometimes to even schedule opportunities to read a book for 30 minutes in the middle of the daytime, just because I've had a long day and need that break. And so, you know, very quickly in your breakout rooms, you know, we're trying to be respectful of time. Just talk for a second about how you feel when you feel like your life is out of balance, and where do you feel that in your body, and what might be possible if you communicate that in a mindful way. And so for me, I feel very anxious and I know I feel it in my chest. And when I'm feeling anxious, I tend to like raise my voice or be dismissive. But we have way better communication at home when I'm speaking mindfully. And so just take a second, you know, with your group and or in the chat to just talk about that. I'm sorry to cut your time a little short there. If you'd like to continue to talk in the chat, that's still available. Just trying to be respectful of our time here together. And so if anyone wants to share there, please continue to do so.
Is that yours, Amanda?
Yeah, you can click to that, Rachel.
Okay.
And so I found this little clip from Elmo's dad. It's only about a minute long. And so I thought this would be a nice way to sort of wrap up the parent perspective piece. And I think it should play.
Okay.
Hey there, it's me, Louie. I just wanted to say...
Can you help Elmo make a pillow fort,
Just
please?
a second, Elmo. I'll be right there, son. You know, it is wonderful to get to spend so much time with our children, but can also be a bit overwhelming. But I just wanted to say, parents, you are doing an amazing job. Remember, though, it's important to take some time for yourself. You know, take care of you. You can listen to your favorite song, stretch, or just take a moment to breathe. What? Come on, breathe with me right now, huh? Take a slow, deep breath in, and then breathe out. Feels good, huh? We are all doing the best we can, and that is okay. No, it's better than okay. It's
Daddy!
Okay, son, I'm coming. Looks like I have to go. Time to make a pillow fort. You hang in there and keep up the great work.
Caring for each other. Visit sesamestreet.org.
And so thank you all. And just remember, we are all doing the best that we can do. And there's some additional resources and events that are occurring. And Margo, did you want to speak to this, or Rachel?
Yeah, I thank you all so much for coming today. We really appreciate you all making time for this in the busy week and life right now. So thank you all so much. We're going to send all this information, as I said before, in a follow-up email, but I just wanted to shout out Resilience Week is almost coming to a close, but there are a few events that you can still check out on our website, grscan.com/resilience-week-Virginia. Two things that I just wanted to highlight for events that we're putting on for SCAN is that for any folks in the Virginia area, mainly Harrisonburg, Charlottesville, and Richmond, VPM PBS is screening a documentary called Resilience tonight at 9 p.m. That really does a great job of highlighting the adverse childhood experiences, a study, and the movement of, you know, bringing sort of this trauma-informed perspective and resilience building skills to our nation. So definitely check that out. And then also Margo will be helping with a Humble Haven yoga class tomorrow, that's being facilitated by their Suzanne Burns. And that will be at 12 p.m. And I'll link this in the email so that you all can also, you know, sign up and register for that Zoom call as well. And I think it will be recorded, I'm pretty sure, too. So Well, there are lots more resources here, and so we will be sending this all out to you all, and we'll be sticking around for a few more minutes. If anyone wants to, chat anything or speak to us, we'll be here. And thank you all again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.